Okay. Hello. Hopefully my audio is working again. I'm feeling kind of weird and scatterbrained today, so I'm sorry if I sound kind of low energy. It's just one of those days. Water. So I'll wait a few minutes while people show up. I will just hang out here, I guess, for a few minutes. This is the last class. I'll probably end up repeating some of this. Maybe I shouldn't talk about that. But yeah. So I figured out how to show my cursor on the streaming, so that's really nice. It has some downsides in the OBS program that I use, but especially for this class, I think having the cursor on there will really help in explaining things and pointing to things. So the drawback is that with window capture, it only shows the windows that I want it to show, but with this one, which is display capture, it shows everything. So before I could just have it on my Photoshop, for example, and it would only show my Photoshop even if I went to other websites and things like that. But now it shows everything. So hopefully, I don't have any secrets or whatever, but hopefully I don't do something stupid like dox myself. I don't know. Don't think I should. I'm not going to be getting on Facebook or anything, I don't think, but yeah. So if you guys are here and planning on staying here, if you could leave a greeting in the chat so I can see that you're planning on hanging out. Otherwise, again, it's just the last class wasn't going to be very not cooperative. There wasn't going to be a lot of back and forth, so it was fine to just pre-record it. And it's the same with this one, I think. I might stop at one point for questions if there's a few, quite a few people here, and if anyone has questions. Really, I guess you could just leave a question in the chat at whatever time, and then when I stop at some point for questions, I can just read them out. So that'd be good. So I'll wait a couple more, I'll wait till 5:03 or 5:05, sorry, my time, which is about 2 more minutes. And then I'll just start the class, regardless of how many people are here. And I mean, I did like recording it last time because then I have filler words that I feel get pretty tedious, especially if I don't have someone to talk to. And it was good to be able to go through and cut out a lot of those ums and long pauses. And I'm sure it was a much more streamlined process. But I did want to, this was kind of an experimental class. I wanted to give it as much of a classroom air as I possibly could. But it's also nice that I can then, people can come to them later. I don't know. Oh gosh, see, this is why I need to edit. I don't know if you can edit something that's already been put on YouTube, in this live stream format. I'm sure you can somehow. I just don't know how. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. So this last class is going to focus on poses, before the final assignment. Now, this is the last class, so it's the fourth of the 4 classes for this character design thing. I hope it's been helpful for you guys. I feel like a lot of it is very beginner level, but as I was thinking about this week, there's only so much you can learn online. Obviously there are different things that like spark different imaginative concepts and stuff like that, but like when I went to school for creative writing, there was only so many classes you can actually take on creative writing before you've learned all the rules, and then all the classes were just write, and then we will do workshops. And so I feel like that's, I think after a certain point you learn all the rules of character design, and then it's just you gotta workshop it. You got to put yourself out there and accept critique and figure out what people like and what people don't like. And personally, I've been really blessed that I haven't gotten a lot of people critiquing my work, or I won't say critique, I will say insulting my work online. Just a lot of people either saying they really like it or being silent. And so I take the silence as this isn't working. And sometimes I ignore the criticism and I'm like, I like it, so I'm going to keep going with it. And then you find your audience. But basically, critique is very important, and every artist needs to get to a point where they are ready to learn from people telling them what they specifically could do better. So we're going to start, we're not going to have a segue, we're going to start with anatomy. So the first thing we're talking about is poses, and in order to pose, you need to understand anatomy. So most people are 7-ish heads tall. So this guy in this picture here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 heads tall, which is more kind of on the superhero side of proportions. But you'll see here, like his top half is 4 heads and his bottom half is 4 heads, and that's usually the norm. Your top half from the hips up, or from the groin up, will be half the length of the body, and then the wrists come about to the hips, and then the hands come about halfway down the thigh, and then the thighs and the calves are the same length. So if you're kind of worried about, oh, how was my anatomy doing, that's a really easy rule of thumb. And then I was taught that also your shoulder length is 3 heads, so you'd have 1, 2, 3. But I don't usually use that all the time. Sometimes it ends up very masculine looking. So really, shoulder width really depends on the character. So let me double check. Oh. Okay, good. So poses should be clear and show personality. A good pose test is the silhouette. So, for example, these are the 3 poses that I used, and I tested how good their silhouettes are by filling them in. So as you can see here, for most of these, like the one on, like this one here, maybe not so clear, but these 2 definitely, you can tell exactly what's going on. You can tell that it's like what kind of character it is. You can tell what he's holding. You can tell what his body's doing. And here, really, all I'd really need to clean this up is to maybe add some negative space in here. And negative space is anywhere you don't have the character. So this here is all negative space, and all these little pockets are negative space. And so negative space is just as important as the positive space when it comes to making a really interesting pose. So there's a couple other things to keep in mind when doing poses, is using strong shapes in line of action, but also don't mirror the pose or completely front face the character. So for example, let me move over to Photoshop. So here I've got my 3 poses again. So the line of action is kind of similar to where is your eye drawn? How does your eye move through the piece? So the line of action for this one here would kind of be like that. Or maybe like this. So line of action usually runs up the spine of a character. So for this one, it'd be like here. For this one, it's also similar, like that. Or maybe even going by like how his tail is, could go like that. So basically, you don't want a line of action like this. You want the line of action to at least have a little bit of curve to it to keep the eye moving through the piece. So what I meant by what the don'ts are is, like say I have a character, I don't want to just do this. So this is a front-facing character who's also mirrored, which means his front side is, or his left side is just the same as the right side. So you can do like some front-facing characters, like for example, if you're doing a turnaround, but you want, even if they're standing just in a normal, relaxed state, like the reason why you don't do it this way is because it's unnatural. Like when you're standing still, you don't stand like a soldier. You kind of stand like this. So you've got more of your weight resting on one leg. So he kind of looks more supermodel-y, but so you're not mirroring anymore. And you've got one arm up to kind of further keep away from the mirroring aspect. So this person could still be facing forward, they just look much more natural, and you've got more of a curved line of action now. Okay, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, there's the strong shapes. So that kind of goes into the silhouettes. Like here. Whoop. I've got some strong shape language here. Got some variety. And variance. So basically I'm not doing something like where things are very, very similar to each other, because that's not interesting. All right, so we'll move on to the next thing. Okay. So one of the assignments, this is the penultimate assignment, is make 3 character, gosh, I keep leaving the minutes in on these. Sorry about that. Make 3 pose sketches of your character with strong silhouettes that show personality. So for example, I say personality because like with these poses, you can tell that this character is more enigmatic. He's very serious about training. Like he's not a very humorous character. You know, like I wouldn't draw a picture of this character dancing or have him in like a Valley Girl type of pose with his hip out and like talking on a cell phone or something like that. Like he's going or clumsy or something like that. And that should show in the poses. All right, so just some different things. These are just some extras that we didn't go over that may be important like in later characters that you come up with or that you can apply to this character. So there are some different like design things that come up when you're dealing with age. So for example, with a baby, the baby is not going to be 7 heads tall. The baby is going to be at most 3 heads tall. This baby here from Boss Baby, which I have not seen and will never see. But anyway, he's only 2 heads tall. And all of his facial proportions, instead of on most faces, the eyes kind of go through the midline of the skull. In the baby's face, all of their facial features are below the midline and kind of squished. And they'll have big eyes and tiny noses and mouths. And their chins aren't very pronounced. You see how his jaw is very like stout and wide. Like he doesn't have a chin hardly at all. And really upped all the roundness. Like even though he's wearing a suit, it's still got some like implied curves in there. And then of course he's got tiny little feet and tiny little hands. Like cute is kind of the operative word when it comes to babies. And then teenagers, like Ron Stoppable here. I picked a boy because boys tend to have these tropes that girls don't have often. Like you can still have these tropes in girls if you have a certain type of character. You'll understand when I start talking. So like Ron Stoppable, he's more lanky. He doesn't have very broad shoulders like a full like fledged man would. His hands are big, and big hands on adolescents is kind of an indicator that they're still growing into their body. And it's the same thing with big feet as well in teenagers. So again, you could have like a lanky girl who has big hands and feet, but that would imply that she's going to grow to be very tall. And then like they have softer facial features. So like a teenage boy might have a strong jaw, but it's not going to be as strong as when he's at adult. And for Ron, at least, he's got like kind of a sloped, he doesn't stand up very straight, you know, he's not, but he's also not a very athletic character. And you can also tell that from his design. But those are some tropes when it comes to teenagers. I didn't include adults here because I feel like a lot of people kind of default to adult when they draw, especially with women. But basically, it's just teenagers kind of amped up. Like I mentioned, like a male adult will have broader shoulders and a stronger jaw and more proportionate. So he won't have the big hands and feet. They'll be more proportionate to his figure. And it's the same thing with women. Like a teenage girl and an adult woman are kind of similar, except for features are enhanced a little bit. So fuller lips, like fuller chest area, more curves, depending on the character. Again, all depending on the character. Like if your character is a basketball player, a female basketball player, she could be lanky with big hands, and then when she gets older, she has the broad shoulders and the muscular figure and not a lot of curves. And that's how it should be for that character. Like you shouldn't feel like you have to put the stereotypical feminine traits on a character just to make sure everyone knows they're feminine. Like this is about character design, not about stereotypes. We're going to talk about stereotypes in a minute. And then the elderly, in some ways you're kind of going backwards when you're drawing the elderly, like a lot of times their backs will slope again, the shoulders will get thinner, the hands and feet will get bigger, a lot of the muscle mass will be gone. A lot of times noses and ears get bigger on adults. I think I heard somewhere that your ears never stop growing, but that could be a lie. So don't. And then also like the cheeks sink in, so you kind of get more of a skeletal feel. And then you also have to remember gravity and sagging when it comes to older people. And again, that also depends on character and stuff like that. Like this guy is a character from Atlantis, The Lost Empire, and there's multiple elderly people in that film, and all of them look radically different from each other. So it just all depends on lifestyle and ethnicity and stuff like that. So another thing to keep in mind is tropes and stereotypes. I'll check the chat real fast. Hello, Karis. Oh, great. Let me type something real fast. I'm getting an error. Okay. Yeah, you can see the error that I'm getting. I just, like last time, my video just cut off at some point, so I want to make sure. Okay, good. If you're good, Karis, we're gonna keep going. Carice, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Okay, so tropes and stereotypes. At first, when I went into this, I thought tropes were different from stereotypes. I thought tropes were maybe more harmless. But when I did some research, I found that tropes and stereotypes are actually pretty similar, except for tropes are more connected to fiction and sometimes very, very specific to fiction. For example, there's a trope called Draco in leather pants, which you will not find in real life, really, because it's very, very connected to fiction. But tropes are stereotypes found in fiction, and also tropes found in real life can also be used in fiction. So tropes can be good to establish the baseline for a character, but should never be the entire character. So, for example, I've been watching a lot of Phineas and Ferb, and there's a stereotypical nerd named Carl. Like, he's got glasses, red curly hair, diminished physique, freckles, braces, he talks funny. He is the most stereotypical nerd. But as you get to know him over the series, he becomes his own character. Like, he really loves his boss and sees him as a father figure. He's very, very smart. He's acrobatic. Like, you really get to know that character beyond just, he's a nerd. So they use that trope, that stereotype as a baseline, but then grew off of it. And a lot of times anime will do that, but sometimes they won't. So this is, I'm not even sure what anime this is, but I want to see how accurate I can get. Because, like, I've seen Ouran High School Host Club, which is also very big on the tropes. All the harems in anime are big on the tropes. And so I could obviously tell you what all the characters in Ouran High School Host Club, what their stereotypes were, just by looking at them. But I was like, that seems kind of biased. So I picked this random one. So you've got here the basic anime hero for this kind of harem. He's not very muscular or masculine looking. He's on the younger side. I'm guessing he's kind of cowardly. They at least want you to think that he's always got like people's good interests in heart, but a lot of times it just means he's a pushover. And a lot of times these characters still can be perverted. I can't really tell from this character if he's a pervert or not. So that's what I would get just from this character's design. That he's a pushover, not very masculine, kind of quiet, probably not very popular. This character, I'm guessing, is the main girl. She's probably a tsundere, which means that she acts like she doesn't like the main character when she really actually does. And probably is mean to him a lot and is also very insecure. Then you got this character who, by her slanty eyes and white hair and her jewelry and her kind of more, a lot in anime, a lot big-breasted women are evil. It's a trope, it's a cliche, it's a stereotype. So I'm guessing she's more of the cool, like, maybe she's not evil, but she's the one who would make more of the hard, mature decisions. She's more forward sexually than the others are. This one is the quirky character, and you can tell by her weird eye thing going on, but also her eyes are big, so that means she's innocent, unlike this character whose eyes are more squinty, which means she can't be trusted. And so she's got this like little bonnet on that's kind of childlike, and it's also very bright. She's got bright blue hair and bright purple, and a bright red bow. So she's the quirky one. She's probably louder than the others. Then there's this one who's a typical lolly type. She's childlike, but that doesn't mean she's actually a child. She could be the oldest one there. Who knows? It's anime. So she's got a witch hat on, so I'm guessing she's a witch. Not really, that's not really relevant to the tropes. But basically, she's going to have a high-pitched voice. She's going to act really cutesy. She might have some, like, funny times, especially if she's older than she looks. She'll have some funny moments where all of a sudden she gets really serious and scares everyone. But other than that, she's going to be super duper cutesy and act like a child. And a stereotypical child. This character is the cool one, the cool shy one. Who is kind of close to a tsundere, like she'll act like she doesn't care, but actually she does care. Won't have a whole lot of lines. Just the cool type. So let me know down in the comments how I did with these character trope stereotypes. And again, I haven't seen this before, but just going off of what I know of anime, you can tell just by the character designs what kind of character they're going to be. And this anime may subvert those tropes, which would be good. But they always start from a place of tropes, which I'm not saying is bad. I do it all the time. But there are times when stereotypes go very wrong, like in these character designs. So this is Killa from Dragon Ball Z. I've never seen Dragon Ball Z, but I know just by looking at this, like if an American company were to design a black character, this would be called out so hard, so fast. Like, and it's a pretty easy fix as well. Like the problem here is that his chin is huge, and then his mouth obviously is just ridiculous. So if they brought his nose down more, made it a little bigger, just so it's more proportionate to his face, obviously made his lips not pink, and not so like caricature-ish, and brought them down a little lower, and it would be a fine character design. Maybe still a little stereotypical, but not offensive. And then it's the same thing with this one. Like, really the what raises eyebrows is the kind of baboonish look of his face, and obviously the color. Like, the song, this is from Peter Pan, Disney's Peter Pan. So both of these are very old, like not very old, but older. And I know Japan has made some better looking black characters since then, and I know that Disney has made some better looking Indian or Native American characters since then. So, yeah. But yeah, so just be careful when you're choosing stereotypes for your characters, not to do something like this, basically. All right, so the last extra is expressions. So basically, know the muscles of the face and use reference. Some things to stay away from are some of the anime, I won't say anime, some of the poorly animated styles. So you can see this in like Western comics as well. Let me double check my, wrong button. Streaming stuff. Okay. So like where their mouth will move and stuff, but their chin won't move. Basically treating the mouth as like a separate entity from the rest of the face, and that's just not realistic. Like if you can feel it when you talk, how your jaw goes up and down, how like if you were to wince, it's going to not only affect like your mouth, but your nose, which will and will also affect your eyes and your cheeks. Like your whole face is affected when it comes to expressions. So for example, I used some reference, just took some random internet images and then sketched them out this morning. This took me about 10-20 minutes. So I usually start around the eyes. And so for this one, I think I started with the eyebrows. It was a pretty good baseline. But like her eyebrows push in on this skin here, and then the nose pushes up the cheeks and pulls up the mouth. And then the mouth kind of pouting pulls at the chin with the baby. Like, I focused on the eyes first to really get that like look of excitement in the eyes. But that excitement in the eyes comes from the mouth pushing up the cheeks to kind of cover the bottom of the eyes. This guy, like, if you can find this guy, he does some really good expressions. I just looked up like facial expressions for drawing, and then I think I went under photography or something. I don't know. But this guy has a lot of good expressions. He just has a very expressive face. So, and it helps that he has this like huge expressive mouth. And that mouth like creates all these nice wrinkles in the cheeks, which especially pushes up here. And then this lady, I chose her because she looks more middle-aged. And so she's got, and I kind of had to pick and choose which wrinkles I wanted to go with. Because wrinkles, especially in line art, are kind of tricky. Because like putting one line on a young person can age them like 10 years. And so when you've got someone who's middle-aged, you don't want to include every single wrinkle or else they're going to end up looking like ancient, even though that's not the case. So, but she has these really nice cheeks, and you can especially see this in the photo with the lighting and how much they push up when she smiles. So I tried to get that here, and you can see how I kind of outlined even where the cheek was so that I knew where that line should push up against. So if you still like have some struggles with expressions, using a mirror when you draw is really good because you know exactly what you want. But a problem I have is like finding subtlety in expressions. And Scott McCloud wrote a book on comics called Making Comics, and he goes through like the muscles in the face, but also like the different emotions and how like there are 6 core emotions and you can mix each of those core emotions at different intensities to get different emotions. And then he has like pages of just examples, and it's really good. And I think you can find that online just by like Googling Scott McCloud facial expressions. So those are really nice. All right. So the final assignment is to make a character sheet for your character. So you should include a front, a side, and a back view, 3 heads with different expressions, and 3 extra poses. And be sure that the poses show personality and stuff. You can use the poses from the last assignment. This one up here. That assignment. So here's an example of a turnaround that I did for one of my characters named Sterling. His comic is actually coming out in like 3 days, which is terrifying because storytelling is hard. But anyway, so this is one of my main characters. So I have, again, like, you know, he's front facing here, but I put one of his feet back a little bit. He's got a hand on his hip, so it's not super static. And then he's got a side view, and then a 3/4 back view. Really, the reason why I made this turnaround and the reason why you should make turnarounds of your characters is for your own reference. Like, you can use them in your own, like portfolios and stuff as well. But if you're doing a comic or something, it really helps to like have a baseline for proportions and color and stuff like that in one place, so you can keep coming back to it. Sorry, my throat's getting super dry. Okay, but as for the character that I've been designing for this class, this guy, this is kind of like my final pose, the one I actually went all out coloring and stuff like that. So when I design a character, I kind of figure them out as I go along. Like, part of my process of figuring out story is to draw the character. And I have to be okay with that changing. Like, for example, so here are his designs. But like, see here, he's got a jacket, or not a, like, I'm using the very Western term, I don't know. Like, he's got like this over tunic or something. And he doesn't have visible pants underneath his kimono. But then in this final one, I've nixed the overcoat thing for a cape, and I've given him the pants to kind of free up his movement and stuff. And I did change his color palette a little bit. So from the previous video, these are the 2 color palettes I was going between. I decided because he's a more stoic character, I wanted to keep it more monochromatic in the grays. But I did up the contrast a bit, and I gave him some lighter fur in here so that it's not so there's more added interest there. And I have names for the characters. So this kitsune is Kenta. I just named them, so I'm still learning their names. Pretty sure it's Kenta. And he wants to be a samurai. He's a kitsune. And kitsune are usually very mischievous, not very reliable characters. But like with a lot of Japanese lore, you can kind of take it and make it your own. Like, I just read something about a kitsune who like was a bad kitsune, but he wanted to be a good kitsune, and then he found love. Like, so you don't like, you don't have to stick really hard to a certain mythology. So I didn't feel too bad about kind of changing what a kitsune normally is. And Kenta does like fight against his kind of more mischievous tendencies. And then he's got this little kid with him named Kei. And Kei, I don't know if Kei is a boy or a girl. I'm just kind of like, it doesn't really matter. Kei is Kei. And Kei has an illness of some kind, and they're an orphan, and they just want to go on an adventure. They want to live their life to the fullest before they die at some point, at some indeterminate time. And Kenta is cool with bringing along Kei, because Kenta's like, well, this is a good, noble thing, me helping this kid, but also the kid's going to die soon, so I also don't have to take care of it for a long time, which is kind of showing his more kitsune side. So yeah, so those are the characters I've kind of come up with. I don't really have a plot for them, but I like these characters and I like drawing them, and so maybe someday I will have a story for them. I like a plot for them. So yeah, so I do have some more sketches of these guys up on my Tumblr, which some of you may have seen already, that kind of just have some more kind of story, everyday life things for these two. Excuse me. So that's it. There is still a link for the Discord down in the description. If you want to do the assignments and post them on the Discord to get some feedback. I'm going to keep the Discord up probably for another month and then disband it. And then after that, like if you are watching this in the far distant future and you want to ask me for feedback on what you came up with for these assignments, I have put some of my social media in the description so that you can get a hold of me if you want. I also have my Ko-fi link there in case you want to donate, but no pressure. I know especially right now, it's really tight for everybody. Let me check the chat and see if there's any... Nope, there's no questions. So, let me think. I cannot think of anything else that I need to cover. So, thank you all for hanging out with me and participating in this, and I hope it's been helpful. And I will see you in some future videos.